And so reincarnation is like an evidence-based experience that your immortal self is recognized in this lifetime, and that you have already walked this path, many, many, many times before. And it's exciting. It's exciting because you level up. You bring in a little bit more to the game. Shout out to my kids. If you're playing Mario, Super Mario, you've got superpowers. And you bring it into the next level. And you're not starting from scratch. You've already leveled 2 or 3 different games, and now you're Super Mario.
Welcome to a Broaderlands podcast. The opinions expressed on Broaderlands podcast are those of the guest speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or Broaderlands podcast. Welcome to Broaderlands podcast. What an honor to have you back.
Brother, it's an honor to be here. I'm very grateful to share space with you.
I'm grateful. I love learning from you. I love your insights. And you carry a message with depth and weight, so I really appreciate it.
Amen to that, brother. Amen.
You know what? I want to get right into it and ask you, who was Lao Tzu for those who may not know? I would love for you to touch on that. And how do you feel his teachings align with other spiritual masters? Like Krishna, Buddha, Yeshua, some of the famous ones, even Thoth. Were they each pointing to the same source through different paths, at different points of time and culture and verbiage? Do you feel?
I love that question. Yeah. I mean, your experience is really subject to your own emanated awareness. So Lao Tzu, in definition, just means old teacher. So if you want to know what his name is in definition, that's a reference to. So Zhifu, which is a form of wise teacher, which is a variable of what we call some people refer to teachers as sifus, which is another version, not as in high regard as Zhifu. But then again, I just love to call myself seafood because it gets right down to it. Because really what it comes down to with Lao Tzu's journey through the annals and the canons of Taoism over thousands of years, he was the divinity spark that created an undercurrent and an awareness within Taoism that was really evoked from one of his teachers, the Yellow Emperor, that really went back thousands of years before even Lao Tzu was consciously in mortal form walking the earth. And he also reached a level of enlightenment, an illuminated state where he was evoking his immortal self as supreme purity. So there are different levels of awareness within Lao Tzu, but generally speaking, through his own teaching, he started as a young boy, was in a situation in his small village where he almost died due to an incident that happened at a local creek near where he lived. And then he basically evoked and healed himself instantly and became this wisdom teacher through the village. And then it started to emanate to greater levels that he was holding court as a literary mind to nurture things that within Taoist culture start to bleed out into the culture within, the landscape of China. And so what was most revered within that time period and has been and never has not been a part of the Taoist path is the culmination between the rhapsody and the remedy. We refer to this as the poetry and the deeper nature of solving that poetic moment by using the lens of Taoist alchemy. And so we find that, deep within the magic, the Tao Te Ching, as we probably referred to in our previous conversation, is what we refer to as a magical register. And that Tao Te Ching has incredible insight. When the initiate speaks the Tao Te Ching, either audibly or inaudibly, you will start evoking the evidence of what we call the pulse, the primordial mother, and it will reflect it back to your mortal self. So anything that you're deficient in or you're separated from will bring you back to whole. So that's the nurturing effect of the Tao Te Ching. It's actually 81 incantations that evoke consciousness within the seeker, and then we go on the path of the alchemical process. So I transcribed the Tao Te Ching with my teacher Lao Tzu last year, so his current version for 2024. And each verse is an incantation. Each verse has the magical properties to create an initiate to an actual cultivator through that speaking of those words into what we call the ether, or furthermore, what you would refer to as this material state. And when they do that, you have 81 different levels of consciousness per incantation. Also, you have a frequency and an actual color and shape that goes with each incantation. So it's a full embodiment. And so Lao Tzu has absolutely an emanated version of what we refer to as the dialogue to the monologue. When I speak to my teachers, they are an emanated state of the mother we refer to as the source. And so that's another reflection of my own journey within the culture that I speak of, just within Chinese culture, let alone Taoism. We have hundreds of teachers, right? And it depends on how you look at it. Many people get a little confused when, there's a God for the kitchen. There's a God for, literally everything that you could imagine, because this is another iteration of their source. So if we were to reflect on that within a path of Christianity, and I've had this conversation with the big JC many times when I come across him within the field of people that I'm working with, helping them remember who they are. His presence is so powerful, and we have these conversations. I love getting into a deeper nature of reality with Jesus Christ, and it's beautiful. Just like the charge you and I are getting as we emanate as one. When I mention his name, you become alive. Your whole aura is oscillating. You're feeling that energy, and the more and more you get in tune with it, the more and more you see this power, and it's within you. That's what gravitates you to wholeness, is this relationship that you have with JC. And furthermore, Lao Tzu never walked the path of self-sacrifice, yet there was many components to his self-realization and his teaching that moved past the mortal self and then was kept and captured within the Tao Te Ching, which is such an ancient scripture. Now, a lot of the variables of the Tao Te Ching today are more doctored, really manipulated scripture for the benefit of the individual that's deciding to transcribe it, as opposed to direct source. You'll never ever hear from anything within Taoism that is not reinforcing your true self, that you are eternal, you're immortal, and you are forever. And so when you get things that are more cynical or skeptical in their nature within any sort of translation of the Tao Te Ching, more likely than not, there's a manipulative narrative that's going on with the person who's, creating or translating the scripture. Whereas if I speak to Lao Tzu, as I am in concert with him and unify with him on a second-by-second basis, I cultivate him either through my spoken word, or I'll have a full emanated embodiment where you'll experience a visceral, kinesthetic, somatic speaking and teaching through me as a catalyst and conduit. So one of the most ancient things within Taoism is channeling. You can't get anything more powerful. And that's really where this history of Taoism, right back to one of my teachers, the Yellow Emperor, at 6000 BC is the first alleged sort of event in a human timeline that we can find in history. Now, I know it goes way beyond that. They teach me that it's tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years old. Yet if you want to find something that's documented in this human timeline, it goes back to 6000 BC. It was the Yellow Emperor who used pictographs and oracle bone reading to start ledging and documenting the experience of the Taoist alchemy that he created through his relationship with the universe. So the universe spoke to him and whispered to him, and that's exactly the same dialogue that Lao Tzu had with the universe and how he was able to create and basically transcribe the Tao Te Ching, which is such a powerful script. So the relationship is key. I believe that Yeshua is, or as you refer to him as Jesus Christ, they're two of the same. They're just different iterations of this incredible energy, and they're able to teach you different levels of your awareness. You may be walking a path where Jesus Christ is how I feel, or Yeshua is how I am in line with a more mystical, alchemical sort of process of this emanated source. And JC, in my personal experiences with him, have always been profound and such nourishing and loving embrace that he gives me when I acknowledge him and we bond through our conversation. And this is something that you cultivate as a channel. You create a monologue to the dialogue. And so, JC is really the dialogue of conversation with God. And it's a greater level. He's another variable of that. And furthermore, as Lao Tzu is a conversation for me with what we refer to as the mother, which is the source and animation of all things. So if we speak on animation, the mother animates consciousness, consciousness animates the spirit, spirit animates the energy, energy animates the body, which is referred to the material state. So this is where we refer to immortality crystallized within the material. And this is where you alchemize and make it real. When you say it is so, you are activating and altering everything around you, but you must be able to hold that resonance, and that's where the alchemy comes in.
I love that. You brought up, you said it, when you brought up JC, you said there's a powerful energy behind that once you say the word. Are we creating that energy with the power of our beliefs and the energy we put out towards Jesus? Do you believe, since it's all connected?
100%. 100%. Like, your experience is subject to you. Your experience, your absolute truth is yours and yours alone. And, anyone that comes to you and says the absolute truth is this, reverse and run in the other direction, because it's an experiencer's experience. And that means that, the charge you and I are getting right now is a unified state. That energy that we're experiencing is a culmination of that. And that's where you get supercharged. The chill, the expansion, the heat, the reverberation is a unity that is existing that goes beyond words. And that's where I always say, when you're thinking, you're not knowing; when you're knowing, you're feeling. And so your love for JC, for Jesus, is your love for yourself. The more and more you recognize that, the more and more you allow yourself to meld back into the true nature of reality, which is you are whole.
I love that. Even your name, is it a title?
Yeah, it's
In
my
Taoism?
embodiment. Yeah, it's my embodiment of what we call the three treasures, the three lights. And that is really, I'm a walking emanated avatar of my teachers, the three pure ones: supreme purity, J purity, highest purity. And they all are relevant within Taoist history and alchemy as the creation, completion, and rebirth of the cosmos. And so all of that is so potent when you realize it's all in line. And then you could refer to, and I'm not as well read within Christianity or the Bible, but you also have levels of trinities and trilogies within your own experience that would be parallel to what we refer to as the three pure ones, which are the dialogue to the monologue of the mother, which would be your dialogue with the Father, the Spirit, the Holy Ghost, and then, of course, your monologue, which is God. And so there's so much, it's just, you love the chills, you love the experience, you love the awareness, because it's so potent. You're like, oh my goodness, I'm onto something.
Did Lao Tzu live right before the Buddha or during the same time?
Timeline wise, I mean, it's not really honestly that accurate. You got to be a little skeptical within Chinese history, because they're so elusive and manipulative of what the real timeline is. I imagine that Lao Tzu was at about the same time, if not a little bit after the Buddha. So I think there's a reference of timeline, and Lao Tzu from documented Taoist canons would be a few hundred years later.
Mm.
But really, you're eternal. It's forever lasting, and it never ends. So, one of the magical parts of alchemy within Taoism is to evoke what we call Nigong, which is internal power through Nidan, the internal alchemy. And you are a reflection of that. When we meet attention and intention, we create what we call the Shen. The Shen is spirit actualized right now. And that's how you're able to create within the material state and return things to wholeness, which is part of the magic. When you return everything to whole, all these serendipitous, synchronistic things start taking place. And so that's where we call that Shen Gong, which is spirit projection.
I was just about to ask you, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Tao is said to be beyond words and form, but how do you understand it and define it through your own experience if it's beyond words and form?
Well, the Taoist seeker, the alchemist, the initiate, will start with their intimate relationship with the scripture. And the scripture speaks to you. It goes beyond the words. It starts actualizing everything within your own material state, and then you become the embodiment where it's all feeling. And so all of a sudden you're like, I can literally experience everything within a contraction and expansion of what's going on in this reality. And so that's what we call the great bellows, where everything is contracting and expanding. And you are all things and nothing at the same time. And that's where you get your entry level into a level up for opportunity. So you start with the words, which will come from the poetry and literary minds of that time. It was very well known that some of the most brilliant poets were entry into this mystical state. And Lao Tzu is one of those, even though many people would not consider the Tao Te Ching a poetic moment, but it actually is, very much so.
That's beautiful. Thank you. The Tao is often translated as the way, correct me if I'm wrong, and you have a channel called The Way, right? So I think this is a perfect question to ask you, and I'd love to hear your insights. In the Gospel of John, Yeshua says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. I don't know if those are his exact words. It was changed around. We don't know the conversation behind that, but how do you understand this statement, especially in the light of the Taoist view of the way?
Well, it sounds to me like, JC was really emanating. This is another iteration of yourself. And then it comes in all forms, and you're able to embody that by going inside. And by going inside, then you expand and you become all things. So your true self will come from that birth of self-realization. And all of a sudden the magic starts to take place, and you start looking beyond the flesh and recognizing that everywhere you look is perfection. Everywhere you look is love, is beauty, is wholeness. And you can't fight it. It's a selflessness and servitude that is when you have arrived. You're looking for an end point that really starts again. It's when you realize that your default requires no participation of your own. And that's the paradox.
And there's no personality speaking through him at that particular time, right?
Yes. None whatsoever.
Do you think that's the problem? They didn't understand that? Some of the gospel writers, or even later the leaders of Christianity, which created they could hear it through the ego instead of the heart?
Well, this is where things are doctored and manipulated over time. This is where I don't believe anything that I've spoken about in relation to the scripture of either it's JC or the big G, always the same, which is there is a manipulation when you truly realize that this scripture is not whole. And when you want to find it, you come and see us. And you can find us anytime, anywhere, any moment with prayer, and you instantly connect your heart with ours. and you come and get a big hug. You get a big dose of love and recognize how powerful you are.
Do you feel like when it's creating division, then it's not true, but when it's creating unity?
Oh, 100%. 100%. There's no question about it. There's, when you have certain paths where someone believes that God told you to kill someone else, that is not coming from God. No. God is there to wait until you are ready, and then he'll be like, I've been here the whole time. Now come and get a big hug. Come on, get a big kiss. Come on. I want to give you some love. And I mean, that's the beauty of it. Because when you recognize that, it's like, I've been really echoing nothing, yet God's waiting for me to evoke that moment. And it happens so quickly when you open your heart up to your self-love.
I'm not even a Christian, and I'm asking you some scripture questions, and I'm asking you one more because I think there's a pretty cool concept in Taoism with Wu Ji and this scripture, be still and know I am God. I'd love for you to expand on that if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is what we refer to within the primordial mother is the primordial breath. Between the breath in and the breath out, we refer to this as the symbiotic dance of yin and yang to one stream. And when you hold your breath, you activate and actualize your Shen Gong. Your spirit is alive. And so through that moment of stillness is where you find the true source to all things, and you return back to who you are, which is perfection.
I love that. Thank you. Speaking of Lao Tzu, I keep bringing him up, but how does it feel to channel him? I would love for you to take us into your own secret place or that inner world, and how is it channeling Lao Tzu?
It's like it's beyond a power and a knowing, and it's so visceral, because just like many of my friends that are channelers, there's a consensus I have quite a few friends, maybe 60 or 70 friends that consciously are real channelers. I'm not going to say other people are not really channeling, but there's a consensus. Like I've done my own research and consensus, and there is a fundamental basics that takes place where there is a beam of energy that comes from the heavens down and saturates the whole body. And it basically codifies this chamber of light that then emanates through the flesh. And anyone who's experiencing that, whether it's a digital experience or in person, is going to have a visceral, kinesthetic, and somatic response to it. And it is potent. It is powerful. And you're at that place of source. It's an emanation of that. And so, you just feel whole when I'm channeling Lao Tzu, and quite frankly, anything that comes out of my mouth comes from him. I'm just giving you a mediumship as opposed to a channeling, where I'm sort of like the ambassador to his information that makes me look like I actually know what I'm talking about. Then when I channel him and you get to interact with his personality, you are at one with source. And you experience that, because a lot of the old channels, and I've had this conversation with many that have been on my journey, the same biological amount, I've been consciously doing this for about 36 years, is that you feel, I can literally take my hand when I'm embodied Lao Tzu, and I could run a knife over it, it won't cut my flesh. I could light a lighter and leave it over the hand, it won't burn the body, because this is a unified state. And and until you experience it, when someone knows that they are really channeling, or whether they're just someone that potentially wants or desires that within themselves. And there's never a right or wrong way. When you're at that point where you still haven't been able to actualize that spirit within you, find someone to help you make it happen. Don't fake it till you make it. It's okay to be on that precipice. And so many people they have this idea that they have to fake it till they make it. No, let's have it actualized for you. And you literally, how it experiences for me is I'm like inside a chamber, and I watch his body frame over the top of my body. I see his body over the top of my body, and I'm looking out, experiencing someone else commandeering everything that I say and do. It's pretty wild.
Is there any accurate drawings of him from historical times?
Here's like anything. An iteration is a variable, and you can literally find all different type of variables of him. I wouldn't say one is more potent than the other, and you'll find tons of images. And I have some of those in my book that I've created, understanding how I perceive him, how I'm experiencing him. And, it's like a different flavor. You got chocolate, you got vanilla, you got strawberry. It's always going to come back to the same source.
Do you find dogma in Taoism at all? I mean, it seems like dogma finds a way in anywhere.
100%. Like it is absolutely abused where there's hierarchy, and within the religion, people want people to bend the knee to a system. When I experience Taoism and what I've been taught as an ordained priest in 2 lineages of Taoism, it's to share the wisdom of the Tao Te Ching, and that's it. It's not about creating a hierarchy where you need to kiss the ring and bend the knee to a certain amount of, levels of development. Because when you really embody this, and this is fundamentally different to many other teachers within Taoism, a lot of them get caught up in the hierarchy. It's really soiled and distorted by martial form. And martial form means nothing if you can't activate and actualize the energy within you. You're just playing a little story of the movements of an exercise, but you're never able to embody it and actualize it in the material state. So martial form pretty much soils and muddies the waters of Taoism, because most people are motivated by the power, and they don't really get it. They never get to that point, because truly everything is an iteration of self. And once you arrive, you realize that you are all things and nothing, that all of a sudden Taoism just dissolves back into the moment, and you are everything. So you are Christian, Catholic, atheist, holy, dirty, diminished, extroverted, introverted, sexualized, completely distorted. And when you realize that, you don't have to erase your personality, because it's a feeling thing that comes with the conditioning of alchemy, where no longer is the personality commandeering the ship. The finite mind, the intellect, just takes a back seat, and you get to experience the personality. Yet what is really running the show is your servitude and selflessness that comes from your true default. That's when you actualize the spirit. So everywhere you look is perfect. Everyone is perfect. Everyone you have love for and gratitude and appreciation and unconditional in every sense of the word.
I love that. Thank you. I was going to ask you about reincarnation. How do you look at reincarnation, and what is the purpose of reincarnation?
That's another variable, another scoop of ice cream. And now it's like, okay, you're waking up to what once was, that is right now, that really, if you start to blend physics or spiritual mystical teachings, everything blends together. Past, future, present moment is really actualized with this breath, this conversation. And I mean, part of the alchemy of Nigong is to be able to operate in every space at once. I think that some people might refer to that as a dimensional thing. It's not linear, but you are able to actualize everything now. And so reincarnation is like an evidence-based experience that your immortal self is recognized in this lifetime, and that you have already walked this path, many, many, many times before. And it's exciting. it's exciting because you level up. You bring in a little bit more to the game. Shout out to my kids. If you're playing Mario, Super Mario, you've got superpowers. And you bring it into the next level. And you're not starting from scratch. You've already leveled 2 or 3 different games, and now you're Super Mario.
Mm. So what would be the how would you understand the Akashic records, or how do you understand like the Book of Life? Is there a such thing, and is there a explanation in Taoism on that?
Well, we refer to this as source, right? So, for me to show evidence of that is just now. Like example, walk up to someone in the street and I can give them their mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual state inside of 10 seconds, just reading their energy. And so instead of it being about something more deep in nature, it's about where are you at in your iteration, your emanation now. And we can look at the energy centers to determine what is the emotion of virtue. And you want to regulate the energy so that your virtue blossoms and the emotion is diminished. And that's part of the alchemical process, is when you are humming and you are unified, you are the embodiment, the emanation of the mother, the pulse, the magnetism that makes it possible for everything to return to perfection.
Yeah, thank you. Can you touch a little bit more on that, the internal power, the internal alchemy, or the Shingon that you talked about, that spirit projection? Like, can you expand on that a little bit more for many of us that never heard some of the terms?
Yeah. So within many systems, like some type of Hindu path, most people are very commonly aware of energy centers, or more so chakras. And so we refer to energy centers as dantians, which is the energy elixir field. And we have 9 dantians, 3 major ones that harness and control the energy, the universe inside you. So as a macro to micro, you are actualizing and alchemizing everything. And the more you regulate the energy, so your connection between the earth and the universe becomes actualized, you can then basically make alterations to the material state that you consider your 3D reality. We refer to that. So with that, you take the upper dantian, which is the sun, the middle dantian, which is the earth, and the lower dantian is the combination of the earth and the sun, actualizing what we call the primordial mother, which is a different variable of the moon. Those 2 energies come together, conscious and unconscious, as one, and then you're able to play with the substance we call the Fajun. So now you're playing with the tapestry. And, when I move this, people that are energetically sensitive will feel the movement of this flow. And so all of a sudden people are like, whoa, he's on the other side of the screen and I can feel his hand moving into my field, into my feelings, because this is actualizing what we call the material, the cloth of perfection, or what you would refer to as your 3D reality, but it's substantive. It's now energy. And so when you merge the sun and the earth, the sun is the light, the earth is the information, the lower dantian is the energy. This is where things start getting really interesting. And all of a sudden, supernatural becomes supernormal, and start to do things that would be seemingly impossible with a logical, finite mind. It just doesn't. Critical thinking will not help you here, because you are now moving past the mind, the intellect, and you are feeling everything, and you're able to access it at will. So Shen Gong is when your attention, the most valuable commodity that you can have in this reality is your attention and intention. When those 2 meet, you actualize your spirit. This is what we call Shen projection, Shen Gong. And so that Shen Gong, that spirit power, will be shown in the material state. And really, quite frankly, this is where you reveal the power of the energy and the material state, which I think I spoke to earlier. The mother animates the consciousness animates the spirit animates the energy animates the body, which is material. So the material state is just a slower variable, a slower distortion, which everything is a currency. So your currency is energy potential. That's what's going on in this material state. Everything is a form of energy. This is a form of energy. You're a form of energy. I'm a form of energy. This is a form of energy. And what happens is it's distorted enough for us to sink our teeth into it. But what are the properties of that? Everything is vibratory, frequential, and holds resonance. And once you hold that resonance, oh yes, it will be yours, or yes, it will. So many people that preach manifestation or magic or healing, you must be able to hold a resonance for it to be actualized in this state. And so a lot of people go past that, and there's a lot of people that have a movement for, astral projection, OBEs, things of that nature. This is exciting, but you're going to return back to your body, because in that space, I'm a Pepsi challenge guy from the 80s. I'll take the Pepsi taste test with anyone. I want to see it. I want it to be actualized in a material state, which cannot, from an astral projection level, is more, you're playing with the spiritual baby shit, as I put it, and you're not actually bringing this now. You want to change the lives of this experience now, not something that might be in the future or in the past. This is actualized this second. And that's the power of Shen Gong. And everyone has that ability, but you must realize your attention and intention must meet. And this is where you're a creator. You're creating. Whether you're experiencing anger or you're experiencing the most divine showering of love, you are creating it. And it's for you to decide how this rolls out. What your experience is really going to be is whatever you make of it.
When I was a kid, I used to have all these dreams, like you talk about, having like these Peter Pan experiences where I'm out of my body and I'm astral traveling. But now, as an adult, I go to sleep and I don't remember anything. I don't remember anything, But when I was a kid, I had all kinds of experiences like that. Now I don't have those experiences. But as a Taoist master, do you have a specific method to help develop outer body experiences or astral travel?
Oh, hell yeah. You've come to the magic man. The alchemy is here. It starts with something as simplistic as this. I'm going to actualize this very narrative so people can take it and embody it and use it to their own discretion. But it starts by laying down, and the invocation is such. You will bleed into the body the energy, and the energy will release. And of course, your mind will dissolve. And people can just play this over and over again. By doing as such, you are the creator. So let's just say you're going to bed tonight and you're like, you know what? I want to explore something. I'm curious. Let me see what happens. Your invocation through an incantation creates an actual environment. So I will forewarn people, by listening to this narrative, I've already actualized this. So anyone that feels just a little bit of energy is going to be like, holy shit, this is real. And so when you lay down tonight, within a few breaths, if you just breathe in and out, not really focusing too much on the draw of it, it will start to bleed into the body where you'll almost experience a bottomless pit of inhalation and exhalation. And then the vibratory effects will start taking place. So this will start to actualize. And what happens is the physical body will feel as though you're on how do I put it? You remember those machines back in the 80s where you'd get on them and there'd be a belt and they'd shake the fat off you? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
It's a vibration that starts from the heart, because you're breathing from the heart, and it will start to move through the whole body. And this is where most people will freak out and they'll stop it. But if you're curious enough, you'll take this little tutorial and allow it to go beyond that. And the first time is an initiated effect of leaving your body. And once you actualize that, I mean, I'm doing it right now talking to you, but I'm a multitasker. That's what Qigong does. I'm experiencing the universe right now. I'm going through stars. I'm talking to you. I'm feeling the visceral kinesthetic effects of merging with those energies. and I'm consciously open, my eyes are open, and I'm feeling all the vibratory effects. This is what we call, within a space of, if people refer to dimensions, it's multidimensional, because you're all things and nothing at the same time. And so what that does is it just charges this, what we call the battery pack, the amber. So, and the other effect that'll take place for the experiencer is that you'll be connected to the breath. So don't be surprised when you wake up in the morning and you feel like a hot coal, like an amber of a cigarette, because you've stored so much energy that your hands will get tight, your body will just be energized. And this is part of the effect of this. Now, for many people, it may take more than one attempt. But I promise you, if you just listen to this for 5 seconds and you truly want this to take place, you're going to shoot off like a bottle of Cristal. And that's the part where don't let go. Realize that, San Qing said, move into it, but my whole body is vibrating like there's an earthquake. That's okay. You're just actualizing it, and it's becoming real to you, and you will feel the vibratory effects. And when you pop out, this is the first level. And, people get excited. I want to see myself. I want to get in part of the environment. How do I know this is real? This is all sort of part of the process. Yet when you become more mastered at it, because everything is a conditioning, you can do anything at any moment. So you're experiencing it as I am right now, but I'm having a very conscious conversation with you, and it wouldn't look like I'm popping off like a bottle of Cristal, but I am. And that's the beautiful part, is being high as AF right now. I am high as a kite, experiencing the energy, because this is all stuff that you create within you. And I think that the most powerful part about your journey, my brother, is how you have transformed your life, and you've created from within you, not using anything external. And I have so much love and respect for all the things that you've accomplished over, it would seem like a decade and a half now. You've really been on that path, brother. And so you recognize you can find that within you. It no longer has to be an external a stressor to create that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Is there a difference between astral travel and remote viewing?
It's like splitting hairs, but you have to be more mastered at it. Most people stay in the astral and they want to see this mundane sort of like, I'm out of my body, and then I turn around and I see myself sleeping, and now I want evidence. So I'm going to go in the other room, and I wrote a number down on the wall, or they're looking for this type of stuff. Now, information is now. It doesn't require you to shut your body down and literally physically die to acquire that information. That's what sensory perception is, or psychic abilities, clairvoyance. These are all things that you condition yourself to, and you don't have to leave your body to find that. It's like happening instantaneously. And, showing people that is something that I love doing and have been for decades. And that's part of the alchemical process, where you are able to access information and it's undeniable and verifiable. And that's part of the alchemy.
Aliens, extraterrestrial, and other planets. Have you ever had any experiences through astral travel?
Sure. Absolutely. Here's the thing. People need to realize that when you exit what you consider the conventional body, you are now creating different layers and effects. Now, there's a big community where people go, oh, I left my body and then I left beyond the veil. I'm beyond this realm, and now I've got this infrastructure of 12 levels of ascension. This is great and good and well for the people that gravitate to that subjective experience, and there are many. It's just like a brainwashing or some type of like focus where people as a collective resonate to a certain thing. It's just like you say tomato, I say tomato. Now, with a Taoist alchemist, when you exit that veil, that they like to call it, you will enter into phosphorus white light that then returns back to the void, the mother, complete darkness. And in between the merging of those two energies, you can pop off into any scenario that you choose to. So this is like entering the center point where the two energies merge, and all of a sudden you create infinite amount of worlds, spirits, experiences. They are limitless. And so when people have a construct that is controlled, it's very controlled, that is an experience that they resonate with, and that's completely okay. And within that, people will talk about soul contracts and what takes place as they're walking this path on Earth and what Earth means to them. This is all subjective, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, this is their experience. It's your experience. It's whatever you make of it. And I think that's when we return to the absolute truth is only yours. And you want to create a mock-up of what you want to experience when you leave your body. Follow the instruction I just gave you. And furthermore, now put a mock-up. Put it on paper going, okay, well, I kind of gravitated to JC, but also I love the mystical path of, Taoism. I want to combine those two together and see what I come up with. And you will go on that ride. You will find a crazy experience, just like we're having now, the charge we're getting. This is the now moment. This is the potency of who you are, and you will develop that skill. Now, what does that really mean? Well, you want to activate and actualize the substance here so you can alter the material, as we put it within Taoism, so you can affect change, connecting more hearts, connecting more lives to this true potency of perfection, and it raises the bar of consciousness for the collective on planet Earth. And that's really a purposeful sort of path for a Taoist, is to be that ambassador to raise the level of consciousness. And when you arrive, you'll know it's a selflessness and servitude you can't fight. You just want to give. Everywhere you look, you find love and perfection and wholeness. It doesn't matter who it is. It's just like, oh my goodness, I can't even say hate. I can't even find anger. I can't find an emotion that doesn't return to this beautiful place of perfection. And that's within it. That everyone has it. It's just a matter of cultivating that energy.
Do you think there's any dangers when you have outer body experiences or astral projection with other entities, as like some of our friends have talked about that you've interviewed and I interviewed?
Listen, let's be very clear. Teaching alchemy for over 36 years myself, 30 years ago, someone would come to me with a psychotic episode and they'd be diagnosed, with a disorder. I would exercise them more in traditional terms as a Taoist priest. It's called an exorcism. And what that is really having someone reflect on what is controlling their behavior. And once you give them the keys to their own self-realization, the exercising of that energy, they become whole again and they're able to commandeer the control system that was awry, that you cannot control. It's like, I'm hearing voices, but I can't get them to stop. I'm getting these urges that are controlling my very behavior. This has all got to do with your control system and your ability to cultivate the energy. And once you're given a system, you're off to the races. And today, that same person that I would have exercised 30 years ago will wake up and go, I'm channeling the Palladians, open up a YouTube channel and get 100,000 followers. So the aliens, per se, to be very clear, when I read people's auras, in the last 10 years, I've been seeing a ton of them. They just come out in people's auric fields. There's a big dialogue. There's a lot more iterations of aliens than I've ever seen before in all my biological lifetime teaching people alchemy. It's really rampant. It's huge at this point. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the masses are starting to gravitate to this messaging, and they're bringing forth entities that are solidifying with their own belief system, and they're being actualized. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So in many ways, we create these entities, right?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Like egregores.
It's like the little kid that cried wolf. Be careful what you wish for. And so to be afraid is imminent demise. You cannot operate in these spaces when you're operating in thoughts, feelings, and emotions, because you are creating your own simulation. Now, if you've already recognized and know your true self, fearlessness is part of who you are. Yet most people get curious, they activate their energy and they get all cocky, yet they're really afraid of their own shadow. And then they start playing with this stuff. And when people, they talk to me, well, is Freddy Krueger or Michael Myers real? I'm like, yeah. You want me to experience the energy? I'll bring them in and you can share it. It comes from the dark-seated, distorted mind of like people like Wes Craven or John Carpenter. These are all creations of their own resonance. And more people resonate with it. I just like to get scared. I like to watch horror movies. That's fine. But if you embody that, then you become afraid of your own shadow, and then you bring more of the same in, and it's of your own creation. So you have to learn to realize the conditioning of the body comes from realizing thoughts, feelings, and emotions are transitory. They're impermanent. They're not real. What? Jifu? It seems to be a theme where we all talk in our third person, right? Jifu, what does that mean? It means that you are that is a different iteration of yourself within this material state. So remember I said the spirit controls the energy controls the body is emanating thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Other distorted experiences are coming from the body, and you are just a tuning fork of your environment. So until you actualize those energies and evoke your spirit self, you are going to be playing with distorted variables of your own experiences. That will come if you're afraid of your own shadow or you're afraid of the boogeyman. That shit is real. I remember specifically I was doing a channeling class with probably 20 years ago. I had my mother in the class. So I'd have about 20 students. There'd be one student that would speak to the entity that the other student was channeling. And this one student, I could see 3 or 4 entities entered her body, and the other student was talking to her, and she was creating this sort of like really soft little childlike avatar, and it was like pretty benign, and I could see the other entities hovering around her in her field. And I'm like, no. I told the student to step over. I sat down and started talking to that entity, and before you know it, it went from, hi, my name is Jamie, to, yeah, you want some of this? And I'm just like, okay, this is real. This is a spirit world. And so through exercising her, which she had 3 entities controlling her plus 17 Klingons. And through that exorcism, she spun around the room 3 times and threw herself across the whole room. Wow. And my mother went, holy shit, this is real. Yeah. But just to put everything in context for the audience, her obsession was being a badass exorcist. So her obsession with the spirit world was, I want to be that exorcist. I want to kick demons' asses and do it. That's great. But quite frankly, when you meet your maker and you are part of the spirit realm and you communicate with spirits like I do at will, it's so soft because those energies will instantly dissolve with love. It's like, oh, how bad, long teeth and they're dark and they've got horns. And the second you give them love, they go, okay, you got me. I guess I got to go back to my real job and I got to return to the source. And then I've got to find someone else that needs a lesson to learn. And this happens so quickly that it blows people's minds. And people get corrupted by it because they get distorted versions of reality and then they feed into it as a creator. And then it brings life to it. And, you can bring these entities in, but they can also be exercised as quickly as you create them. And it does. It kind of makes people a little tweaky and they contract a little bit, but that's part of their own experience. And, you ask for what you want and you get what you want. And it becomes realized only, I'm not a creator when this shit happens. Only when I'm able to, create a beam of the rainbow light and Jesus comes and gives me a hug. That's part and parcel of the whole thing. But you need to be the conduit and catalyst so you can be very clear on your emanated state so that it is a dialogue to a monologue of the true source, which will come with servitude and selflessness. But, people go down that path. And quite frankly, so when we talk about aliens, I had a deeper discussion when sometimes I do remote viewing sessions and check out different parts of the universe. And, one of the, Lao Tzu was giving me a really deep description of what sociopaths and psychopaths and serial killers are. They are a transmuted version where an alien has attempted to mate with a human being, And what aliens really want from everything I've experienced through that, my own interactions, is they want to find the sentience. They want it so bad. They want the empathy. They want it so bad they would kill for it. So they keep traveling to planet Earth, and they're attempting to replicate planet Earth on Mars. And I did a remote viewing of Mars, and there's an incredible infrastructure. There's like 7 different like altars that they've created to attempt to replicate the resonance of planet Earth on Mars. And so, yeah, I mean, you could go right down the rabbit hole. And so a version of a sociopath and a psychopath is the merging of an alien and a human being attempting to create this sentience that they desire so badly for for basically the survival of their particular species. And it happens over and over again. It's kind of mind-blowing, quite frankly. And so you'll see it. You'll look at, how could someone be so sick, sadistic, a serial killer, a murderer, someone that has absolutely no sense of reality, and they can't find that sentience within them when they're a human being. Is this alien is trying to commandeer the human state. And once you activate your sentience, it just disappears. But, you will see a transmuted variable, a hybrid, and it happens with those type of scenarios. Does that kind of make sense, or is that too out there for you?
No, yeah, it makes sense. Love to listen to this too, but yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
You brought up Mars. Did you ever see that face on Mars? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. There was different structures. I visited the moon most recently in one of my remote viewings, and that has a crazy infrastructure underneath that is got like an aquifer, and there are aliens submerged in encapsulated bubbles that are floating within the aquifer inside of Mars. And then there's a deep center point where it's like a ground control system for the aliens. And then it gets even crazier than that. I actually walked up to and experienced a whole infrastructure that China had set up when they landed on the moon. And it's like, I mean, you can't make, when I was doing it, I was like, I can't make this shit up. Like, it's just wild to experience it. It was a visceral thing. And they were setting up some type of bomb system on the moon because they were attempting to control the universe through the demolition of the moon. I'm just like, crazy. And people freak out because they've got their own obsessions. I was actually exploring that with one of my friends who was, into, remote viewing. And, when Lao Tzu goes deep, he goes deep. And, and I always say to him, specifically, I'm like, honestly, Marty, I don't really give a shit about this. The fact you're excited by it, let's go and check it out. And then when we check it out together and Lao Tzu's giving us he's freaking out because it makes sense for him and everything that he knows about Mars and all that kind of shit. And for me, that's the last thing that would move my needle. I wouldn't even, I'm not even interested in it, but then it becomes even more potent because the information is a stream. You're not manipulating or trying to control it with a certain self-interest. This is when you know you're really remote viewing or furthermore tapping into source, which would be what you're talking about with the Akashic records. And the Akashic records is an interesting thing. It's only relevant until it's not relevant. I want to see evidence. For me, show me evidence of how profound this source is, and I'll be a believer. But until then, it's another source of information. It's not right or wrong. It's someone else's source of information. It's not mine.
You've had a near-death experience, and what's your take on near-death experiences? Are people experiencing these experiences more and more now, or is it because of the internet we're just more aware of it now? And what's the purpose of a near-death experience? Is something intentionally creating these moments for individuals, or I would love to get your take on all that.
Well, yeah, it's like you're listening to, you're getting the signs and you're listening, right? Right. It's like, wake the F up. It's time for you to be actualized. You're walking a path that will remember who you are. And this seems to be a most common thread for many people. But for me, when you actualize the near-death OBE, astral projection, you are recognizing your eternal immortal self, and you don't have to die to do it. And so it will help you find the path that you need to be on for this lifetime. We all have the same purpose, which is singing Kumbaya and being in love and being perfect and solidifying that. Because the distortion is where people are losing sight of their sentience. They're desensitizing themselves to that power, and ultimately they're destroying the empathy that lies within every human being through, conditioning themselves to forget, conditioning themselves to avoid what they consider pain, suffering, misery. And it's all a subjective thing that's how people tend to actualize themselves, is through that conditioning. So, the truth is, you are me, I am you.
Mm.
And what am I afraid of? Myself. And that's where a lot of people get caught up in energy practices where I need to envelop myself or protect myself from this. This is part of the fear. And so the fear will find you. You cannot go down that path. And that refers to that student that I had, that I spoke of. It was like that exciting thrill that you get where your adrenaline is so high that you're about to jump out of a plane, or you're doing a bungee jump, or you're doing something, a roller coaster ride. It's an exciting adrenaline junkie moment, but then you're going to come down off the high, and then you're going to realize, oh my goodness, I would never have done that consciously. I just didn't have control over it. And then you become more and more inverted. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I appreciate it. Man, there's so many questions that's popping up. But one of them is something we discussed on talking about is an aura. I'd love for you to define what an aura is, and how did you realize you can see someone's aura, and can anybody see these auras within people?
Oh, 100%. An aura is an emanated state that you're in right now. There will be a core center, the center channel. We refer to that as the Tai Chi pole. That connects all the energy centers, the dantians, together. And depending upon where you're at in your own level of cultivation, you'll have an excess or deficiency of that within a Taoist alchemy aura reading, where you'll have emotion of virtue. What is the ultimate actualizing is diminishing the emotion and revealing the virtue. And when you do that, all of a sudden profound things start taking place. And, so if I tap into someone's energy, it's always for that moment. It's not a permanence, but you can see the infrastructure of their belief system, what they resonate with on a higher spiritual level, where those teachers will come out through their field. They'll say, hello, how you doing? And it's an awesome experience to witness. I do it all day long, and I tend to have a reservation as sharing it with many, because some people find it's a violation of their inner self. And some of my students are like, "You're aura dipping again, Jifu. Stop aura dipping." But anyone can learn this as a conditioning. And you start to see it not in your third eye, but with your eyes open. And it's a cultivational practice. And certain traits that are universal that everyone will speak on, when you start to see levels of ascension, where ascension and transcendence meet, is this moment where there's certain elements that come out in their field: gold, silver, platinum. These are elements that show a higher level of cultivation and awareness that, over thousands of people that I've read over my lifetime, it always ends with that. When you start to get that evidence and you're materializing it now within the body through your auric field, you will see these elements within the person's aura. And so when you're looking at someone's aura, you will see all the different colors, information. It's like looking at a computer screen where you can capture information coming in, their thoughts, their emotions, their feelings, their spiritual alignment, what they're into, what they're not into. And so when I ask people if they want an aura reading, I call it a psychic reading, they're like, yeah, sure, magic man, give me a psychic reading. And I always start at the bottom, because the bottom is an easy out for many people, because they have this idea that no one can really see them for who they are. That's the delusional state. And so I'll always start with the energy center, which some people will call the transpersonal point. That's the first Dantian for a Taoist. Then the root chakra is the second. And this gives you a fundamental understanding of people's parameters, their boundaries, where they're at in their own expansion of themselves. So you look at that and you go, okay, I'm not going to push too hard because they're kind of fragile. And if you step into their own space and you start revealing things about themselves, they're going to get really offended. And so I start off with that, and then I go into the sexual energy, and everyone goes, okay, stop. We're done. And they're like, you can see that shit. Yeah, absolutely. But I'll read it like a menu. I'm not reading it like, I want you to recognize me as the next coming of Jesus. I'm Moses. I'm parting the sea. I couldn't care less about that. It's information. And when I read it, I just read it like a menu, and people flip out because that's how fast you can access this stuff. And it's important that people realize that that's all it takes. Once you condition the body with the alchemical process, one of these is a clear sense and the ability to see and experience what is going on with another individual, another initiate. So that's the thing that people get a little freaked out by, because the energy centers have an illuminous state to them when they're highly evolved, and then they have a diminished state when they're sort of in between phase of cultivation, or they're sucking too much from the physical field, which then starts to affect the organs in the body. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, having all these insights and visions, and you look outside and there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of chaos in the world today, in our country, our society. Do you believe it's everyone's forgotten who they really are, our essence, our shared humanity, our shared oneness? How do we get back to that unifying state? Or is this all done for a purpose, for like a greater awakening? How do you look at what's going on right now? There's a lot of hate. There's a lot of anger, the us against them mentality, dehumanizing one another. It's just kind of chaotic out there for some people. What's your take on all that?
I think that you're a product of your environment, and that, you know, right now it's so easy to commandeer someone's attention due to the environment. We've created a scenario where, as I put before, attention, intention is the most valuable commodity that you have. That's your superpower. That will actualize your spirit. Now, when someone commandeers your attention and you diminish the ability to hold that conscious state, you fall into the corrupted, diminished returns of the electronic age. Cell phones, computers, whatever. They are taking and sucking from your life force. And so it's an environmental thing that you have fallen into and become captured by with this insight and understanding. So if you want to take charge of your own experience and return to wholeness, take your cell phone and toss it in the toilet, or furthermore, your laptop, the internet. And these are all parts of the way you communicate, or minimize your exposure, where, you know, you use it functionally, but then you put it away. You're not sitting there like that empty suit that you look across at in the restaurant where they're having dinner with their wife and they didn't speak to them once in 45 minutes because they're on their cell phone. This is a common thing. But when it comes to the environment, we are being mind controlled by a consensus. And so that is affecting the world stage. And so more people like yourself and myself are becoming to pop up, and they're becoming more aware of what's going on in the environment. And by us sharing wisdom teaching like the podcast that you and I have, people, they just resonate with stuff. They're like, holy moly, I listened to this guy talking to boo-boo, and wow, what are the chances that made sense to me? And so really we're not going off a cliff. Even though it would seem that way, if you waste your time watching the news, you're going to be corrupted and it's going to be delusional. It's just like anything else, you're changing a TV channel. And if you sit on the TV channel, then you're going to become immersed into that. You're going to find your attention is now on the end of the world, financial disaster, recession, death, World War III. It just goes on and on and on. But actually, if you step away from it and go, I'm not listening to that today, and within a week you've sort of like you've bitten the bug and you've been able to condition yourself away from that corrupted state, you'll be right, well, I don't really care about that anymore. And 6 months will go by and you go, 6 months ago, I was concerned about financial ruin, death and destruction, the end of the world, because I'm not being controlled by it, because when you're emotional, you're suggestible. And that's really, if you want someone to access your unconscious, that's the first thing that happens. Evoke an emotion and you'll instantly have control over that person. And compliance comes from your not being aware. So, let's say, for example, hypnosis is a simple one. I always use that as a ground level, basement level understanding. You need to realize that you're accessing your conscious and unconscious through a trance-like state, which you could technically refer to meditation as such. And so people are being commandeered all day long, the mob mentality where you're feeling like World War III, people are fighting with each other, there's dismay, there's distortion. This is all because they had their attention commandeered. And so within, I like to show people how instantly you can take charge of your reality. If I, go down to Vegas and do street magic with my kids, I'll walk up to someone and ask them if they want to experience bliss. And bliss is an instant state of awareness that we all have. And when I resonate and project a resonance, which is a feeling, it has nothing to do with what you're thinking, you will instantly fall into that sedated state of just relaxation. Mm-hmm. And people freak out. They're like, hang on, you walk up to them and you go, would you like to experience bliss? They're like, okay, what is that? Are you going to hypnotize me or something? I'm like, sure, whatever you want. And then their friend gets their camera out, and they walk over and they're getting ready, and their friend passes out standing up, and I didn't say anything. And they're like, oh, shit, what just happened? This is a resonance. This is a resonance that I'm just very used to cultivating. And all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, so your friend's going to experience bliss. And the friend's holding the camera, and I'm like, what we're going to add is I'm going to erase their name. I'm going to be Justin Bieber, and they're going to hand me their wallet and keys while you're filming. And they're like, oh my goodness, what is going on here? And they will come back to what they consider consciousness is still a state of awareness. And they'll be sort of like, okay, when are we starting? And their friend's like, oh, what do you mean, when are we starting? You started like 5 minutes. No, we haven't started. And I'll be like, so what was your name again? And they're like, and the friend is freaking out. And I'm like, no, what is your name again? And then they're just blank. And then they take a minute and they look at me and they go, Justin Bieber, can I get a photo? And the friend is just crapping themselves at this point. They're like, holy shit. And I'm like, before we get a photo, I want you to tell me how you really feel right now. I don't know, kind of relaxed. How relaxed? Pretty relaxed. And then as we're speaking, they take out their keys and their wallet and they start handing it to me, and their friend's like freaking out. And I'm like, this is what we call a state of awareness. And of course, in the same breath, you deactivate that because you're being programmed by everything you do. Understand this, ladies and gentlemen, better heads up that the second your attention is commandeered by anything emotional based, they have control over you. And so people better get this real straight. That's why I always suggest that people learn basement level trance and hypnosis, because then you understand how you create things. And so this is always a great way to measure that. And of course, they wake up and they're completely stone-faced. And in the same breath that I just breathe in and breathe out, all of a sudden they remember everything. It all flushes back in. They go, holy crap, I can't believe that took place. This is how quickly it happens. And so when you get into meditation, you are mastering yourself. You are mastering a state of attention and intention. And from that, anything is possible. And it really depends on where you go with it and what you want to make of it. And of course, what you're getting with the method of cultivation, which I think is really important, because if you want to take it further than just calming yourself down and, hey, I feel relaxed, I had a hard day, I just want to relax, then recognizing that you are a powerful creator, that you're the master keeper creator of your reality, then things start to change. Then we get really excited because there's no limit to what's possible. And I've seen it all. I've experienced it, and I'm still expecting to experience more of the same, if not at a greater scale, because there's no limit to what is possible, in my opinion, from what I've experienced.
Yeah, thank you. Before we go, I want you to touch on your new book,
Yeah.
Immortality, Crystallizing in the Material.
Yeah. Thanks, brother. Yeah, it's a fantastic A to Z on what is the fundamental effects of how you create. There's more information on the metaphysics of Tao, understanding how you start from the mother, the pulse, the void, and go all the way up to altering the material and your ability to craft from this material state evidence-based stuff. You're an experiencer. Experiential moments are all you have. You must be able to develop these skills, or it's just a transitory effect. So what people will notice when reading that book, which is a fantastic book in my opinion, that I use the ancient craft that we were given as Taoist alchemists, which is the poetic justice of the words and how powerful they are. And most, if not everyone that's ever read that book to date goes, holy crap, I'm having an experience. Yes, because it's imbued with that unified state within the words itself. So you are feeling a visceral kinesthetic response. It's not just, oh, wow, that was a nice read. No, it's an embodiment, and that's part of the magic. So, I look forward to people reading that, and they can find it on my website, immortaltaoistrites.com. Pick it up, check it out, and fly off into the sunset or to where you want to go, because it is now, and you have it. You have the potential. Anyone could do it.
How is writing something like that when you're a channeler?
Yeah. Well, altogether included in everything, it was probably, a couple hundred pages. It took me about 2 hours.
Wow.
And so, and that week I wrote 5 books, that book, and then 4 ones that I haven't published yet. And, I watch my mother literally watches as it comes out of my mouth, coming directly from source. And she freaks out going, you can't make this shit up, because it's instant. Like when you read the poems, those poems are coming straight out of me. And it's like all that information is a culmination of everything I know and embodied through my biological experience and then a higher state of consciousness. And so when we look at the poetry, it becomes so powerful. So commandeering your attention with that would be is the simplicity of, as you kneel at the altar of your mind, dropping deep into the shallow essence of self through the sultry effects of the waves as they come towards you, as your hollow heart becomes full, you will find your destiny within your soul. That power lies in the regret. Power lies in the sadness of the heart. Power lies in the humanness of being. Fall to that knowing and allow yourself to surrender to this very now moment, as you are all powerful. You are love. You are everything. And that's really how it goes.
I love it. And there's a lot of beautiful images that's in your book. I'm like, whoa, it's very colorful, very enlightening, very great. It's a good feel. You sent me over the digital. Yeah, it's beautiful, actually.
Thank you, brother.
So I appreciate that.
It's a living experience. It's something that I welcome people to experience, and it evokes a lot for anyone that reads it.
Is there a specific translation you recommend for the Tao teaching?
My translation with Lao Tzu, which you can find that on my website, theway126.com. And that is like an experience in of itself. That's a masterclass. And people freak out with that because you are holding an almanac of alchemy and magic. And it starts with the words. You just fall into that cup and you melt back into your wholeness, and you feel it through the perfection that the mother mirrors back to you. So everything that's an impermanent, fractured state that your body has created through your human experience, it will literally return to whole.
A lot of people don't know, and I think we talked about this last time, but Bruce Lee was highly influenced by Lao Tzu.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I channeled him. I don't know. We probably talked about that. I have a video on my channel, and he went into his curse and all the things that went on with him and his son and it was kind of crazy, man. Like, you can't make this stuff up. And it was deep, man. It was super deep. And a lot of people were like, oh my goodness, it just happened at the same time, because he came around knocking on my door, because I leave the lights on all the time. So you name it, they're going to come knocking, and they do. And I don't mind. Sometimes I'll have conversation with them. Sometimes I'll be like, nah, man, you can kick rocks. We're good. Yeah, you're clearly a knockoff version of that particular spirit. And they do come in those false light experiences where you think you're talking to one thing, but it's actually another. So it's always something to be aware of. If you're going to turn the lights on, I am probably a bougie version of Motel 6, but hey, I leave the lights on all the time.
I appreciate you coming on, my friend, and I'll definitely put out your links and how to find your books. And we'll go from there. I'd love to have you back. And,
brother.
We'll do this again.
I love it. I love it. And I love you, brother. And I'm really grateful you've created this space for people to find themselves. And you're an inspiration. And it's really important for people to understand that anyone can achieve a level of awareness and learning to return back to loving thyself. And when you love yourself, then you can love everyone else.
I appreciate that. And thanks for coming on again, and talk to you soon.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
Namastizzle.
Just know we out here. Know we out here working in a major way. Had to speak on it just to make a play. Any given subject, know we make a way. Time to level up on the day-to-day. Know we out here working for the greater good. Expand your mind, broaden your lens the way you should. From the stars to the galaxy to speak on spirituality. Higher understanding for the neighborhood.